Ethan had seen struggling customers before, people who counted coins and apologized for existing. But something about this woman, Grace, he later learned, made him pause. Maybe it was a raw mix of exhaustion and determination in her eyes. Maybe it was a child whispering, "Mommy, it's okay, we can share my cereal." Or maybe it was a memory of his own mother doing the same years ago, her hands shaking as she pretended things were fine. Grace finally pushed a few lint-covered dollars onto the counter. I'm short," she whispered, her voice thin. "I thought I had enough. I'm so sorry." Ethan looked at the register again. $15. To most customers, that was nothing. To her, it was the difference between her child going to bed full or hungry. The rain outside deepened, pattering against the windows like a ticking clock urging him to choose. "It's okay," he said softly. "Don't worry about it."
You have
Grace
to trust
blinked. "What?" "You're good," Ethan repeated, sliding the bag toward her and canceling the remaining balance. "Just take care of your little one." Her lips parted in disbelief, eyes softening with gratitude that didn't need words. She picked up the bag like it was something fragile, something sacred. Then she whispered, "Thank you, truly." And for a brief, warm moment, Ethan felt like the world wasn't as cold as the rain outside. If you were standing there in that moment, what would you have done? Would you have helped her too? Tell me in the comments, and if words escape you, tap like to show that compassion still matters. Grace left quickly, holding her child close, vanishing into the misty parking lot. Ethan watched them until they disappeared, the automatic doors sighing shut behind them. He returned to mopping the counter, unaware that a security camera above him had recorded the whole exchange.
Take it.
Unaware that
It's
his
all I
life was
have.
about to change.
You have to trust me.
It started with a sharp voice the next morning. "Ethan, office, now." His manager, Mr. Dalton, a man who looked like he'd been permanently welded to irritation, stood stiffly behind his desk. The security footage was paused on the screen. Ethan's hand hovered over the voided sale. "You gave away merchandise," Dalton said, his tone clipped. "Company policy doesn't allow that." "It was $15, Ethan replied quietly. "She needed help." Dalton leaned forward, jaw tightening. "And the moment you decide what customers have to pay is the moment you're no longer an employee. Turn in your badge." There was no argument to win, no space for compassion, just cold rules and a colder man. Ethan removed his name tag, the plastic suddenly heavier than it had ever been, and placed it on the desk. By the time he stepped outside, the morning sun felt harsh instead of warm.
It's all I have.
He tried to
You have to
breathe through
trust
the
me.
sting in his chest. Losing the job wasn't just about money, though he desperately needed it. It was a humiliation, the sense that kindness had cost him everything. He sat on the curb, elbows on his knees, listening to the distant rush of cars. He wondered if Grace was okay. He wondered if he'd made a mistake. Over the next few days, he searched for work anywhere, diners, delivery services, hardware stores, but no one was hiring. His savings thinned. His confidence thinned even faster. Nights grew longer. Meals grew smaller. But still, he didn't regret helping her. By the fifth day, Ethan's shoes were soaked from walking door to door in the drizzle. He headed past the gas station, his former workplace, now strangely foreign, and kept his eyes down. He didn't want to see Dalton. He didn't want to see anything. Then, the unmistakable sound of a powerful engine rolled across the parking lot.
It's all I have.
Slow,
You have
deep,
to trust me.
expensive. Ethan turned. A Rolls-Royce, sleek, midnight black, impossible to miss, glided to a stop in front of the station doors. Its chrome reflected the gray sky like a distorted dream. The back door opened. A woman stepped out, holding a small child. Her clothes were different now, cleaner, warmer, but her eyes were the same. It was Grace. Ethan froze in place, breath caught somewhere between hope and disbelief. She looked around, searching for someone, searching for him. And when her gaze finally met his across the pavement, something inside him stirred. She smiled, not a small smile, not a polite one, a knowing, grateful, life-changing smile. And she began walking toward him, each step carrying the weight of a story he had no idea was about to unfold. Grace crossed the parking lot with careful steps, the drizzle beating over her hair like tiny
Take it.
crystals.
It's all
The
I
child
have.
on her hip,
You
Liam,
have to trust me.
studied Ethan with wide, curious eyes, as if he somehow remembered the warmth hidden in a stranger's voice days earlier. The Rolls-Royce behind them looked impossibly out of place beside the faded gas pumps and chipped pavement, its engine humming with the quiet confidence of wealth. "Ethan!" Grace called softly. He swallowed. "Grace? How did you—" "I came looking for you," she said, adjusting Liam as she reached him. "I went inside first, but they told me you weren't working here anymore. I figured maybe you'd be close." Her voice held something gentle, but heavy too, like there were 100 unspoken things behind it. Ethan forced a small smile. "Yeah, I'm not here anymore." Grace's expression softened with guilt. "Is it because of what happened?" He nodded. A sharp breath escaped her, the kind someone releases when they feel responsible for an invisible wound. "Ethan, I'm so sorry.
Take it.
I never
It's
wanted."
all I have.
You have
to
nothing to
trust me.
apologize for," he cut in quickly. "You were just trying to feed your son." For a moment, they simply stood there beneath the gray sky, the drizzle settling around them like a curtain. Grace shifted her weight, as though wrestling with something inside her. "Can we talk?" she asked. "Somewhere a bit quieter?" Ethan hesitated, but the sincerity in her eyes settled it. He nodded, and they walked together beneath the station's small awning. Liam reached toward Ethan, tiny fingers grabbing the air, making Grace laugh softly for the first time since she'd arrived. "He remembers you," she said. "Children sense kindness faster than adults." Her words warmed him more than he expected. Then she took a slow breath, the kind that precedes something painful. "Ethan," she began, "the day you helped us, I wasn't just having a bad day. I was coming from the women's shelter on Willow Street. Liam and we just left a situation that wasn't safe." He felt his chest tighten. Grace looked away as though embarrassed, though she had no reason to be. "We had nothing," she whispered. "No car, no family nearby. Just a few dollars and hope Liam wouldn't feel how scared I was." Ethan didn't speak. Didn't need to. His gaze held hers, steady and open. Her voice trembled. "And then you treated me like a human being. Not a burden. Not an inconvenience. Just someone who deserved help. Have you ever had someone step in during the exact moment you needed them most? If so, type yes. And tell me their name. Gratitude has a way of echoing farther than we expect." Grace adjusted Liam and continued, "Gentler now. After that day, something unbelievable happened. The shelter director introduced me to a charity that works with women rebuilding their lives. They offer emergency funds, and then, well, things began to move faster than I ever imagined." She exhaled shakily. "Eventually, I reconnected with an estranged aunt I hadn't spoken to in years. She's very well off. She flew in last night to help us transition into a stable home. That's her car." Ethan glanced at the Rolls-Royce again, its polished exterior reflecting him like a surreal mirror. The contrast between then and now felt almost unreal. "I told her about you," Grace said softly. "About what you did. She insisted we find you." "Why?" Ethan asked, to say thank you the right way. Grace stepped back slightly, giving him space. Her eyes glimmered with something bright, hopeful, almost emotional. "My aunt is waiting in the car. She wants to speak with you." Ethan's breath caught. "Speak with me? For what?" "You'll see," she said, offering a small, secretive smile. "Just come." He wasn't sure what he expected as they walked back toward the Rolls-Royce. Maybe a polite thank you. Maybe a handshake. Maybe nothing at all. But when the back door opened again, he found himself staring at a woman with silver hair pulled into an elegant twist, her posture regal yet warm. She wore a tailored coat the color of deep wine, hands folded gently in her lap. "Ethan," she greeted, as though she'd known his name for years. "I've heard so much about you." He cleared his throat, suddenly aware of his damp jacket and worn shoes. "Ma'am, I didn't do anything special. Just helped someone who needed it. A rare trait," she replied softly. "More rare than you think." She nodded toward the empty space beside her. "Please, sit." Ethan hesitated, glancing at Grace, who gave an encouraging nod, before sliding into luxurious interior. The scent of leather and warm cedar wrapped around him like a foreign world. The older woman studied him for a moment, not judging, not measuring, simply seeing. "My name is Evelyn Cartwright," she said, "and I believe you're the reason my niece and grandnephew are standing here today with hope instead of fear." Ethan's heart thudded. Evelyn continued, her voice gentle but firm. "I intend to repay that." "What do you mean?" he asked quietly. But Evelyn only smiled, the kind that hinted a turning point was coming. One big enough to rewrite someone's life. "We'll start with something simple," she said. "An opportunity." And just as Ethan's pulse quickened, Evelyn reached into her bag. Evelyn's hand moved with deliberate grace as she pulled out a slim, cream-colored envelope, sealed with a gold-embossed crest that almost glowed in the dim light of the Rolls-Royce interior. Ethan stared at it, unsure whether to breathe or brace for impact. "This," she said, placing the envelope gently into his hands, "is not charity. I don't believe in handouts. They often strip people of dignity. This is a doorway you've already earned." Ethan felt the weight of the envelope, far heavier than paper had any right to be. He traced the crest with his thumb, too nervous to open it. "Go on," Evelyn encouraged, her voice warm but expectant. "It's yours to see." With a slow inhale, Ethan lifted the flap. Inside was a letter and a check. His eyes stopped on the number first, not because he meant to, but because the figure practically shouted at him. $10,000. His breath hitched. "Ma'am, I can't take this. This is too much. Evelyn lifted a hand, silencing him with gentle authority. "You can, and you will. It is not payment, it is investment." She leaned closer, lowering her voice. "Your kindness saved my family at a moment when we had none left to give. You stepped in when the world was stepping on her. That tells me everything I need to know about who you are." Grace watched from outside the car, her expression soft but filled with fierce support. Liam bounced lightly on her hip, babbling as though he sensed something important happening. Ethan swallowed hard, staring again at the check. The edges trembled between his fingers. What do you want me to do with this?" "Whatever gets you to solid ground again," Evelyn replied. "Your life shouldn't fall apart because you chose to be kind." He felt his throat tighten. He had been holding himself together for days, barely surviving on fragments of hope. But something about those words cracked him open. For the first time since he'd been fired, he felt seen. Not judged, not dismissed. Seen. "But why me?" he whispered. Evelyn smiled, a soft, knowing curve. "Because people like you are scarce. And the world needs more doors open for them, not close." He closed the envelope carefully, holding it like something sacred. "Now it's your turn. Share one small good thing you did recently. Write it below so others remember humanity still lives. Your story might be the spark someone needs tonight." Ethan wiped the back of his hand across his eyes, trying to steady himself. "Thank you," he said, voice breaking. "I don't know how to repay this." "You already did," Evelyn replied, motioning toward Grace and Liam. The truth of that hit harder than he expected. The rain eased into a mist as they stepped out of the car. Grace moved closer, her shoes tapping lightly against the wet pavement. "You deserve this," she told him. "I meant what I said. You changed everything for us that day. I'll never forget it." Ethan looked at Liam, who reached for him again with open hands. The child's trust only deepened the ache in his chest. He crouched slightly, letting Liam touch his fingers. The innocence in the tiny gesture nearly undid him. "You two take care of each other," Ethan murmured. Grace exhaled softly. "We will, and you, take care of yourself too. You've earned a new start." Evelyn stepped out beside her, closing the car door behind her. "Ethan," she said, clearing her throat gently, "there's more." His heart skipped. "More." "Of course. Money alone doesn't solve the root problem." Her eyes flicked toward the station behind them, where Mr. Dalton stood stiffly behind the window, arms crossed as he watched the scene unfold with suspicion. Injustice should not be left unchallenged. Ethan stiffened. "Evelyn, please, don't start anything with him. It'll just make things worse." But Evelyn's gaze remained steady and thoughtful. Not confrontation. Correction. Before Ethan could ask what she meant, she stepped toward the station doors with the quiet confidence of someone accustomed to being heard. Grace followed behind, holding Liam carefully, while Ethan moved with reluctant steps. Inside, the station was silent except for the faint buzz of fluorescent lights. Mr. Dalton stood near the counter, trying to mask his unease as the elegantly dressed woman approached. "Can I help you?" Dalton said, forcing a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Yes," Evelyn replied calmly. "You can." Her tone made the room still. Ethan lingered near the door, wishing he could shrink into the shadows. Evelyn studied Dalton as though assessing whether he deserved the next breath she offered. "Is it true," she asked, "that you terminated this young man's employment for helping a mother feed her child?" Dalton's posture stiffened. "That's company policy. Employees can't give away merchandise." Evelyn nodded once, slow and controlled. "Good. Then you won't mind when I share this moment with your regional office." Dalton's face paled. "What?" Evelyn reached into her purse again, this time pulling out a business card and sliding it onto the counter. "They will be very interested to know that their employee handbook is being used to punish compassion instead of theft." Dalton opened his mouth, but no words came out. Grace stood behind her aunt, eyes blazing with the strength she gained over the last few days. Liam pressed his cheek against her shoulder. Ethan watched everything unfold, pulse quickening, as Evelyn lifted her chin and said quietly, "Compassion is not a flaw," Evelyn said, her voice steady enough to shake the air. "It is not misconduct. It is not grounds for punishment. And it is certainly not something a company should fear." Dalton swallowed, his atoms apple-bobbing like he'd forgotten how to breathe. "Ma'am, I don't want any trouble." "Good," Evelyn replied. "Then you will listen." The tension inside the store thickened like humidity. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, reflecting off the polished counter where Ethan had once stood proudly. Now he watched from near the door, unsure whether to step in or run. "People like Ethan are the reason businesses exist at all," Evelyn continued. "Not because they follow rules, but because they carry human decency where others forget it." Dalton opened his mouth, searching for some defense, but only a week. "It was policy," slipped out. Evelyn took a step closer, her heels tapping sharply against the linoleum. "Policy is written by humans. It is meant to guide, not punish empathy. You had a choice, Mr. Dalton, and you chose to humiliate a young man who acted out of kindness." Grace shifted Liam on her hip, watching the scene with quiet satisfaction. Ethan, however, felt a knot forming in his stomach. He didn't want revenge. He didn't want Dalton destroyed. He only wanted fairness. "Evelyn," he murmured, "it's okay. Really." She turned slightly toward him, her expression softening. "Ethan, dear, it's not okay. If no one stands up for kindness, then the world teaches people to hide it." Dalton's posture shrank. "Please," he muttered. I didn't mean for it to go that far. It was one decision. A bad one. Grace gently touched Ethan's arm. "You don't have to protect him," she whispered. "Not after what happened." But Ethan shook his head. "I just don't want this to ruin his life." The room quieted at that. Even Dalton blinked, startled by Ethan's sincerity. Evelyn studied Ethan for a long moment, then turned back to Dalton with a sigh heavy enough to move the air. "This young man, whom you fired without hesitation, is now asking me to spare you," she said. "Do you understand the character you try to punish?" Dalton lowered his gaze. I see that now." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Good, because what happens next depends on what you're willing to do." Dalton glanced between them nervously. "Anything, please. I can fix this. I can bring him back." Ethan stepped forward gently. "I don't want a job back." Dalton's shoulders slumped. "Then what do you want?" Ethan looked at Grace, at Liam, then back at Dalton. "I want you to treat people like humans. Not numbers. Not problems. Humans." Dalton looked ashamed. "I understand." Evelyn exhaled, her voice softening. "Then prove it." There was another long silence before Dalton finally nodded. "I will," he said quietly. I'll make things right." Somehow. No one pushed further. No one humiliated him. The moment settled naturally, like rain finally easing after a storm. If that moment hit you hard, leave a red heart. Sometimes a tiny symbol says what our hearts can't. Evelyn stepped back, satisfied. Grace offered Ethan a small, grateful smile. "You handled that beautifully," she whispered. Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, still overwhelmed. "I didn't want him crushed. I just wanted things to be fair. And that," Evelyn said, touching his shoulder gently, "is why your kindness deserves to be amplified, not silenced." They walked out into the soft drizzle again, leaving Dalton behind the counter, breathing unevenly as though he just survived a storm he created. The Rolls-Royce waited silently, lights glowing faintly in the gray morning. Grace bounced Liam lightly, humming under her breath, and the child giggled, a sound bright enough to cut through the gloom. "What now?" Ethan asked. Evelyn considered him for a moment. "Now," she said, "we plan your new beginning." Ethan felt a nervous flutter in his chest. "My what?" "Your new beginning," she repeated firmly. "You deserve more than a check, Ethan. You deserve a path." Grace nodded. "My aunt isn't the type to offer help halfway." Ethan took a breath. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do, though. I don't have a degree. I've only worked small jobs. I'm not." "You are compassionate," Evelyn said, "and that is a foundation stronger than any resume." They reached the car. Evelyn opened the rear door, but didn't get in. Instead, she leaned lightly on the frame, studying him again. "Tell me, Ethan, what do you dream of doing? If money weren't a barrier, if fear weren't holding you hostage, what would you choose?" He froze. No one had asked him that in years. Maybe ever. The drizzle softened into a cool mist around them, as if the world itself were waiting for his answer. Ethan looked down at his hands. Hands that had carried groceries, stocked shelves, lifted boxes, wiped tears when no one else saw. I don't know," he confessed. "I've never had the luxury to dream." Evelyn's eyes warmed with understanding. "Then let's start there," she said. "Let's find the dream you've never been allowed to imagine." He felt something shift inside him, hope awakening, timid yet undeniable. But before he could speak again, Liam suddenly reached toward him with a bright smile, as if urging him forward into something new. And for the first time in a long time, Ethan wanted to follow. Ethan walked beside the Rolls-Royce as Evelyn guided him toward a small seating area just outside the station, a weathered metal bench beneath an overhang, its paint chipped but sheltering them from the mist. Grace sat with Liam cradled in her lap. Gently rocking him as the child began to drift into drowsy blinks. Evelyn gestured for Ethan to sit. "Dreams don't appear fully formed," she said softly. "Sometimes they whisper. You simply haven't had the quiet to listen." Ethan lowered himself onto bench, staring out at the parking lot that had witnessed both the worst and best moments of his week. The gray afternoon felt strangely calm, as if pausing to let him breathe. "What did you enjoy?" Evelyn asked, before bills, responsibilities, and exhaustion buried your spark. "Think back." He hesitated. "I used to sketch," he admitted quietly. "Mostly buildings, streets, little scenes I'd see around the city." Grace's face brightened. "Architecture." Ethan shrugged. "Maybe. I always liked the idea of designing something that made people feel safe or inspired. I just never had a way to study it properly." Evelyn folded her hands, thoughtful, a practical dream, creative, and deeply needed in the world. She tilted her head. "Would you pursue it if you had the chance?" He let the question linger in the cool air. He imagined it. Clean drafting paper, lines forming shapes, ideas becoming shelters. A future built instead of endured. "I would," he finally whispered. "If I knew how." Evelyn smiled. "Then perhaps that is a direction we'll walk toward." Emotion pressed against his ribs, raw, overwhelming. He'd spent years convincing himself dreams were luxuries other people could afford. Grace shifted on the bench, her voice gentle. "Ethan, you deserve to build something for yourself." He looked at her, at the sincerity in her tired but hopeful eyes. "Do I?" he murmured. "After everything? I lost my job, caused trouble, Drag you all into... You didn't drag us, Grace interrupted softly. You lifted us, and we're just trying to return some of that light. A lump formed in his throat. He wasn't used to feeling seen in such a complete way. Evelyn placed a hand lightly on his shoulder. I've helped many people rebuild their lives, Ethan. Some were deeply lost. Some were broken. But I've never met someone whose downfall came from kindness. Her eyes softened. Yours is a rare heart. Don't mistake punishment for proof that you were wrong. He stared at the ground, rain pooling in tiny mirrors on the pavement. He had forgiven many things in his life. Poverty, bad luck, closed doors. But forgiving himself was harder. Grace adjusted Liam again and asked quietly, "What scares you most about taking this chance?" He swallowed. Failing. Being a disappointment. Proving everyone right that I'm not meant for more. Grace exchanged a brief glance with Evelyn, one that carried compassion, not pity. Ethan, Grace said softly, you've already succeeded in the place where most people fail. You showed humanity in a world that often teaches us to look away. Her words hit him deeper than she knew. Be honest. Could you forgive after what they did to him? Type forgive if you could, or never if it would break you too deeply. Ethan let the question settle in the air between them. Though it wasn't just about Dalton anymore. It was about forgiving himself for believing he deserved nothing. A soft rumble of thunder echoed in the distance, though the sky held only a calm drizzle. Evelyn's gaze moved thoughtfully across the parking lot. I have contacts in a local community college, she said suddenly, and in 2 apprenticeship programs. I can make a call today, see where an opportunity might open. Ethan's heart thudded. You'd do that for me? I would do that because of you, Evelyn corrected gently. Kindness deserves momentum. His breath quivered. But, she continued, only if you want it. I won't force a future onto someone who isn't ready to claim it. Ethan stared at the envelope still tucked into his jacket. $10,000. A second chance. And a woman who believed in him more than he ever believed in himself. I want it, he whispered. I don't know if I'm ready, but I want it. Grace smiled, relief softening her face. That's enough. Just then, the station door opened. Dalton stepped outside, shoulders hunched, eyes uncertain. He approached slowly, hesitant, almost embarrassed. Ethan, he called softly. Ethan stood, instinctively tense. Dalton stopped a few feet away, rain dampening the edges of his shirt collar. I needed to say something, Dalton muttered. I shouldn't have fired you. I shouldn't have been so cold. Ethan didn't speak. Thoughts in sight. I guess I forgot what it was like to struggle, to be decent. This job, this place, makes people hard. He swallowed. But that's no excuse. Ethan studied him quietly. Dalton looked smaller than the man who had ordered him into the office days earlier, not physically, but internally. I'm sorry, Dalton said finally. Truly. Grace watched from the bench. Evelyn remained silent, letting Ethan choose how the moment unfolded. Ethan took a breath, and for the first time since everything began, he felt the ground steady beneath him. Dalton stood there, bracing himself for anger he fully believed he deserved. Ethan, however, didn't feel rage rising inside him. What he felt was tired, worn down, and ready to let go of something heavy he'd been carrying since the moment the name tag left his chest. You hurt me, Ethan said quietly, not accusing, just honest. You made me feel like kindness was a weakness, like I should have stayed silent instead of helping someone. Dalton's eyes fell to the wet concrete. I know, and I was wrong. Ethan crossed his arms loosely, not defensive, just anchoring himself. Do you really regret it? Or are you just afraid of Evelyn reporting you? Dalton opened his mouth, then paused. He looked toward the Rolls-Royce, toward Grace holding Liam, then back at Ethan. No, he said finally. I regret it because I saw myself in her. He jerked his chin toward Grace. Years ago, before I got this job, before I got hardened by it all, I forgot what it felt like to need help. The honesty was unexpected. It softened something inside Ethan, but only slightly. Dalton tried again. I lost myself somewhere along the way. Ethan, you reminded me who I used to be, someone who actually cared. His voice shook. I know I can't undo what I did to you, but I'm asking you not to carry bitterness because of my mistake." Ethan absorbed this quietly. Rain tapped around them like a patient metronome. "It's not about punishing you," Ethan said. "It's about not letting this define me." Dalton nodded, relief flickering weakly in his posture. "If you ever need a reference, or if there's anything I can do to..." Ethan cut in gently. "Just treat the next person better. That's all." Dalton blinked, surprised by the simplicity and the weight of the request. "I will," he promised. Then he stepped back, giving Ethan a small, grateful bow to head before turning toward the store, leaving the moment suspended like mist. Ethan exhaled shakily. His hands were trembling, but not from fear, from release. Grace approached slowly, Liam half asleep against her shoulder. "That was brave," she said, letting go like that. He shook his head lightly. "I don't know if it's bravery. Maybe I'm just tired of hurting." "It's still brave," she whispered. Evelyn joined them, her expression softer, almost proud. "Forgiveness is a kind of freedom, Ethan, and today you freed yourself a little." He nodded, a quiet warmth settling in his chest. The storm inside him was finally starting to break apart. "If you believe love still wins, comment amen. Let's fill this space with hope. Someone scrolling tonight might need to see a little light." A gentle breeze brushed across the lot, lifting the edge of Ethan's jacket. Cars passed by, unaware that something profound had just softened the world around him. "So," Evelyn said with renewed purpose, "shall we talk next steps?" Ethan chuckled softly. "You don't waste time, do you?" "Life is short," Evelyn replied. "An opportunity doesn't like to be kept waiting." Grace sat again on the bench, rocking Liam, her voice low and comforting. Ethan joined her. Evelyn remained standing, hands clasped lightly in front of her. "I can make those calls today," she said. "But before I do, Ethan, I want to know what you truly want. Not what you think is realistic. What you want." Ethan stared at the wet ground, watching raindrops form expanding rings. "I want stability," he said slowly. "A future that isn't built on fear of losing everything again." He hesitated. "I want to do something that matters." Evelyn's eyes glimmered. "And architecture matters. Creating spaces that shelter and inspire matters." "You matter, Ethan." His breath caught. Hearing it spoken so plainly felt like someone opening a window in a long-locked room. Grace touched his arm. "You helped us because you couldn't look away from someone hurting. Imagine what you could build if you applied that same heart to career." Her words echoed softly inside him. Evelyn continued, "The programs I know aren't easy, but they are the kind that reshape a life. You would have guidance, financial support, and a path forward." Ethan felt overwhelmed and hopeful all at once. "I never imagined I'd get a chance like this." Evelyn smiled gently. "Most people don't, but you earned it the moment you chose compassion over convenience." He let that settle. The truth was simple. He wanted to try, even if he failed, even if it scared him. "Okay," he whispered. "I want the chance." A proud breath left Evelyn's lips. Grace's smile widened. But just as the moment swelled with promise, Liam suddenly stirred, fussing softly, reaching his arms toward Ethan again. The boy's small fingers brushed Ethan's sleeve, grounding him. Grace laughed quietly. "I think he approves." Ethan chuckled, gently taking Liam's hand. "Guess we're in this together." "Huh?" Liam giggled sleepily, and something inside Ethan softened into something warm, almost protective. Evelyn watched with knowing eyes. "Children sense good souls," she murmured, "and he's right about you." Ethan felt a fragile, new sense of belonging begin to take shape, like the first sketch lines on a blank page. But life wasn't done reshaping him yet, because just as Ethan lifted Liam back to Grace, Evelyn's phone buzzed in her pocket. An incoming call from a name that made her expression shift instantly. Urgency, recognition, possibility. "Ethan," she said, answering the call. "It's beginning." Evelyn pressed the phone to her ear, her posture shifting into something sharp and focused. The drizzle around them softened, as if the world itself were pausing to listen. Grace quieted Liam, rocking him gently, while Ethan watched Evelyn's expression twist from surprise to calculation to something he couldn't quite read. "Yes," she said into the phone. "He's with me now." A pause. "I understand. Send it to my email. I'll handle the rest." She ended the call slowly, lowering the phone, her face thoughtful. For a moment, she simply looked at Ethan. Studying him the way someone studies a rare piece of art they've just discovered is more valuable than they thought. "What's going on?" he asked cautiously. Evelyn stepped forward, her expression softening. "That was one of the directors at the community college. I reached out earlier, hoping something might align for you. An opening, a scholarship, anything." She exhaled, the faintest smile tugging at the corner of her lips. "You won't believe this timing." Grace leaned in. "What happened?" "A spot just opened in their Architecture Foundations program," Evelyn explained. "Mid-year entry. Hardly ever happens. And they want to interview a candidate by tomorrow morning." Ethan blinked. "Tomorrow? But I don't have a portfolio or anything. I don't even know what to bring." "You have sketches, don't you?" Evelyn asked. "Just old ones," he admitted. "Nothing fancy." "Perfect," she said. "Authenticity matters more than polish. They're looking for potential, not perfection." Grace smiled softly. "You should show them who you really are." Ethan's heart pounded. Tomorrow, an interview. A door he never knew existed swinging open so quickly it made him dizzy. "But I'm not ready," he whispered. Evelyn touched his arm lightly. "No one ever is. Readiness isn't a requirement for destiny, just willingness." Rain collected in shimmering droplets on the bench beside him. He rubbed his palms against his jeans, trying to steady his breathing. "Evelyn, what if I mess it up?" he asked, voice trembling. "What if they think I'm a joke?" Evelyn shook her head gently. "Ethan, listen to me. The world has underestimated you long enough. Do not join them." Grace nodded. Shifting Liam as the child yawned. "You helped us when you had nothing. Imagine what you could do with something." The words settled deep inside him, warm, terrifying, hopeful. He lowered his gaze. "I don't even have clothes for an interview." Evelyn waved a hand. "I'll take care of that. There's a department store 10 minutes from here. We'll find you something modest and professional. You don't need luxury, just confidence." Ethan exhaled shakily. "I don't know what to say." "Say yes," Grace whispered. A small laugh escaped him, nervous, disbelieving, but real. "Okay," he murmured. "Yes." Grace let out a relieved breath, her eyes glowing with encouragement. "You're going to change your life, Ethan. I can feel it." Evelyn gestured toward the car. "Come. We'll drive you to your apartment first, so you can gather your sketches. Then we get you ready." Ethan hesitated, a sudden wave of embarrassment washing over him. "My place is small, not impressive." Evelyn gave him a warm smile. "So what? Great stories begin in small rooms." He swallowed. Something in her voice made him believe it. They approached the Rolls-Royce. The soft hum of the engine felt like an invitation into a version of his life he never knew he could step into. Grace opened the back door and secured Liam into his car seat. The toddler looked at Ethan with sleepy trust, as though he already believed in whatever future waited for him. Ethan paused before getting in. The station behind him faded into the mist, its memories heavy but no longer defining. Dalton stood inside, watching with unreadable eyes, but Ethan didn't feel anger or bitterness, only closure. When Ethan finally slid into the leather seat, something shifted in him. Not confidence. No, not yet, but the first fragile thread of belief. As the car pulled out of the parking lot, he watched the gas station drift away behind them, swallowed by rain and distance. Grace glanced at him from the front seat. "How are you feeling?" she asked. "I don't know," he admitted. "Hopeful. Scared." He exhaled. "Alive." Evelyn smiled. "Good. Change should feel like that." They drove through quiet streets lined with blurred lights reflected on wet asphalt. Ethan stared out the window, imagining what tomorrow might look like. An interview, a chance, a beginning that didn't feel borrowed or accidental. Grace reached back to touch his hand briefly. "You're not alone in this." The gesture softened him in ways He didn't know how to explain. Liam babbled softly from his seat, eyelids drooping. The world outside felt different, larger somehow, as though possibilities were blooming beneath the drizzle. Evelyn's phone buzzed again. She glanced at it, nodded, and said softly, "They're waiting for you, Ethan. Your future is waiting." And for the first time in his life, he felt ready to walk toward it. The drive to Ethan's apartment took less than 10 minutes, but to him it felt like traveling between two different versions of himself. The man who walked out of a gas station 5 days ago with nothing, and the man who might walk into a college interview tomorrow with everything to gain. The Rolls-Royce slowed in front of his building, a weathered, aging complex with peeling paint, dim stairwell lights, and a metal railing that rattled if you breathed too close to it. Ethan felt heat rise to his cheeks. "I know it's not much," he murmured. Evelyn stepped out first, unfazed. "It's a beginning," she said simply. "And beginnings are the most important part of any story." Grace followed, lifting Liam, now fully awake and pointing excitedly at a stray neighborhood cat darting under a parked car. She smiled as Ethan unlocked the building door. Inside, his apartment was small but clean. A worn sofa, a tiny kitchenette, a single window overlooking the alley, and on his table, scattered sheets of paper covered in pencil lines, shading, and quiet dreams he had tucked away whenever life demanded survival instead of imagination. Evelyn approached the sketches with reverence, lifting one gently between her fingers. "These are wonderful." Ethan rubbed the back of his neck, embarrassed. "They're rough." "They're real," she corrected. "And that's far better." Grace walked over, Liam perched on her hip. She studied one of Ethan's drawings, a street corner with an arched walkway and soft lanterns lining the perimeter. "This feels warm," she said quietly, "like a place people want to gather." Ethan's throat tightened. "I always liked drawing places that felt safe." Evelyn nodded slowly. "Then architecture is exactly where your heart belongs." They gathered several sketches, some wrinkled, some smudged, some half-finished, and placed them carefully into a portfolio folder Evelyn had brought from car. As she zipped it closed, something inside Ethan settled. Not certainty, but alignment. He felt, finally, on the edge of becoming who he was meant to be. Grace brushed a finger along one of the pages before it went into the folder. "Your work saved us once," she said softly. "Maybe one day it'll help you save even more people." Her words lingered in the dim apartment light. Evelyn checked her watch. "We'll get you clothes tonight. Then rest. Tomorrow requires a clear mind and a full heart." Ethan nodded, the nerves rising again. "I hope I don't disappoint you." "You won't," Evelyn said firmly. "You couldn't." Grace stepped closer. "Ethan, no matter what happens tomorrow, you've already changed our lives. That can't be undone." He swallowed hard. "You changed mine too." A quiet moment bloomed between them, gentle and warm. Liam broke it by stretching his little arms toward Ethan with a happy squeal. Ethan laughed, lifting the boy for a moment, letting the child's innocent joy dissolve the lingering fear in his chest. And for the first time in days, he felt truly light. Grace smiled at the sight, soft, full, almost emotional. "You're good with him." "He's easy to love," Ethan replied. They exchanged a look that said more than either dared to speak. Evelyn cleared her throat softly, but with warmth. "Shall we?" Ethan nodded and placed the portfolio against his chest. As they exited the apartment, he turned off the single lamp, leaving behind not a life ending but a chapter closing. Down the stairwell, the night breeze met them with a gentle coolness. The city hummed faintly in the distance. Cars, voices, the low rumble of life continuing. At the curb, Ethan paused, looking at the envelope still tucked safely into his jacket. The weight of the check no longer felt like charity. It felt like a promise he was finally willing to meet halfway. But just as he reached for the car door, his voice caught in his throat. "Evelyn." "Yes, dear?" "What if tomorrow changes everything?" She smiled. "Then it means you were ready for change." What she didn't know, what none of them knew, was how profoundly tomorrow truly would change his life. Not only with opportunity, but with a revelation waiting at the end of that interview. A revelation tied to Grace, to Evelyn, And somehow, to the very moment he let a struggling mother walk away with $15 worth of groceries, destiny was already moving toward him, and he was finally moving toward it. Before the night carried them forward, let me ask you something. If this story moved you, don't scroll past quietly. Tap like, not for me, but for the soul who carried hardship with quiet grace. One click becomes your way of saying, I felt your journey. I honor it. Moral: sometimes the smallest kindness, a waved $15 bill, a gentle word, a moment of courage, ripples outward further than we could ever imagine. In a world quick to judge and slow to see, be the person who chooses compassion anyway. Because one act, even a humble one, can become the hinge on which someone's entire future turns.